Hey y'all, I wanted to jump on here and just go over something that I think is really important. I'm hoping to help anybody else that might be on a journey like me. I'm on a journey to move abroad. I have lived overseas before, so I want to have that disclaimer that I'm not brand new, but I have been back in the United States for many, many years. But back and forth with slow traveling as I try to figure out where I'm going to settle with me and my children abroad. And I'm on my final country to scout, which is Portugal. That is my next trip, and that will be happening in less than 30 days. But it's one thing that I think is so important that I don't think a lot of people talk about is why people return to the US and they don't stay when they find a place that they really like abroad. And I'll tell you that a lot of people think it's finances, but from my direct observation, and when I say direct observation, as somebody who continuously connects with expats and things like that, and I see them come and go, what my experience is that it's culture shock. It's the experience of what I would call a loneliness, a deep loneliness, when you go over somewhere that you're very excited about being there. You've chose it. You are excited, just like I was. So I'll tell you my story. When I moved to Italy, that was my first time leaving the United States and moving abroad to Italy. And I had to do it as a military assignment. But even with the support system with the military, I experienced an entire year of culture shock, and I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what it was. I just thought it was like a depression. And it doesn't set in right away. So what I want to make sure that's clear to a lot of people is that at first you go through like this honeymoon moon stage, because you're going to be experiencing a lot of things that you never have experienced before, and it's very exciting to you, especially when it's beautiful. It's a place that's really beautiful. But I would say about a month in, 2 months, maybe 2 months in, you start to experience this loneliness. And where that stems from, in my direct observation, is the non inclusivity into the environment around you. And what I mean by that is language. You don't know what's being spoken around you, and that's continuously. You're out, you're doing normal things, you can't understand or feel included with language. So that's why it's best to learn the language as quickly as possible. And I'm speaking to myself as well, because I've been dependent on touristy areas to kind of cushion me from that. But if you truly want to give yourself a chance to stay out of the United States and thrive, not just move, but thrive abroad, you have to learn the language. Another thing that really is shocking to people is the bureaucracy outside of the United States. One thing that I could say about the United States, is a lot of things I could say about the United States that's wonderful. But one of the things is that United States are a very get things done type of place. And when you go outside of the United States, people are not on that get things done. They honestly, it comes off like they don't care, because they don't. Most of the time, unlike us, they more care about family issues, time off, and things like that. And that could come off as kind of cold to somebody who's an outsider. Another thing is food. I think a lot of people underestimate the impact of a different tasting type of diet when you go overseas. You might have a favorite food, you might have a favorite restaurant, a chain restaurant, something like, I'm saying, even a fast food, McDonald's. That food is not going to taste exactly like the food that you come across in the United States. And that gives you a type of loneliness too, because we are creatures of habits. We like familiarity. That comforts us. And when you have that stripped away, it's very difficult to feel like you belong. Another thing that I find is, and this is for me personally, and I do think that it impacts a lot of people, but they don't say it. It's money. When I say money, I'm talking about currency exchange. Have you been somebody, or you're somebody who likes to control where your money is going? When you have currency exchange, it's a lot different, and a lot more difficult to control exactly where your money is going, unless you properly plan and you properly track everything. And that can get exhausting. That can get exhausting. But what the main thing that I want to talk about this loneliness and this culture shock is how do you combat it? You have to plan for it. You have to plan for it. And what I mean by plan for it is that know that it is going to hit. I don't care who you are unless you've been out of the US and you've lived out abroad a lot. It lessens. So you know what to look for. You're able to plan for it. But if you're new and you're going abroad, you must connect with the community. I see so often people worried about where their apartment's going to be, and those things are important. The things that they're going to do with their families and things like that, and that is important. But what's more important is that you take a lot of time to start contacting people that are like you, that's already there. It is very important to have those connections because those connections, even loosely, will help you through. And so that's one of the things I want to tell you that you have to plan for. Another thing to plan for with it is to start to get familiar with the language. You don't have to be fluent before you get there, but you want to be conversational because people receive you a lot differently when you try to speak their language versus you just think about how the United States is on steroids with this. If somebody doesn't speak English, we get really upset, especially if they're in service, especially if they have some type of role here. We get really upset. But just think of that. It's a sign of respect. So you need to learn the language. And then have your currency conversion apps. Have those apps readily available. Learn how to just use cash. You know, a lot of people want to depend on debits or credit debit cards, but that's even less harder to control because it's very hard to do something different once it's already done, you know, especially if you don't know the language or you don't have connections. So that's one of the biggest things that I want to talk about with what I see as the issue with people not being successful with, you know, moving abroad. Now, a part of that I do want to talk about, and it should be no feel of shame, but I do see it sometimes come off as a shame. You may not be a fit for this particular place that you've chosen. You spent some time there, you've lived there, not just a tourist vacationer there, and you've decided that there's certain things that you cannot live with. Don't take that as a failure. Take that as a moment to learn yourself and understand what you're specifically looking for when you go to another country. That is the stage I'm in. I've lived abroad, so I know specifically what I can deal with and what I can't deal with. And that's what I go looking for when I move abroad. So if y'all have any questions about this particular issue, how do you connect with local? I just took down my Christmas tree, so I got snow all over me. Y'all ignore me. I got snow all over me in my hair, my arms. But if y'all have any questions about that, how do you connect with expats abroad, which I'm gonna tell you right now, a big thing is Facebook's groups. That's where you should be living at before you move abroad. Before you even scout, you should be living there and making connections like it's a job almost. But anyway, if y'all have specific questions, you know, just drop them down in the chat and I'll answer them. Don't forget to follow my new YouTube channel that I have. I'll put it on the screen. Also, I'll put what countries I've already scouted in case you have questions about those countries. And I'm also on Lemon 8. So I hope to see y'all soon.